They say intuition is a woman's secret superpower. I disagree. I don't think it's a power. I think it's a sentence. It whispers the truth even when we do everything we can not to hear it. And sometimes we deliberately ignore it because facing the truth hurts more than living inside a lie. I ignored mine for months, maybe for years. But that night, when the storm decided to crash violently against my house and against my life, there was no longer any way to pretend that voice didn't exist. Hello. Thank you for being here with me today. Before I open this wound in front of you, tell me in the comments where you're listening from. It always helps me remember that even in the loneliest stories, there is someone on the other side. Now, let me take you back to that Tuesday night, the night everything ended, even though I didn't know it yet. It was raining as if the sky had decided to tear itself apart. Water lashed against the windows of Aunt Bet's old house, whipping the glass with violence, as if it wanted to come in without permission. The wind made the house groan, and for a moment I thought it was just another night when loneliness weighed a little heavier. I was in the kitchen, focused, trying to turn an ordinary night into a celebration. The filet mignon slowly browned in the oven, the aroma of puff pastry, juicy meat, and truffle oil, the one Raphael said he loved, filled every corner of the house. 2 years. 2 years since he proposed. 2 years planning a wedding that became more expensive, more complicated, and strangely more distant with every passing month. I set the table with Aunt Bet's silverware, lit the tall candles, aligned the cutlery with almost obsessive care. I even bought that absurdly expensive bottle of Cabernet that cost more than a responsible pharmacist should spend on a Tuesday night. But I wanted it to be perfect. I wanted him to arrive and say it had all been worth it. When my phone rang, I smiled before even answering. "Hi, love, it's almost time. The filet is perfect and I opened the wine so it can breathe." "Marina." His voice came through broken, chopped by wind noise and distant announcements. "I'm sorry, love." Something in his tone made my stomach tighten. "Something huge happened with the downtown project. The investors are panicking. I need to fly to Brasilia tonight, right now." My smile froze. "Tonight? Raphael, tonight is our anniversary dinner. I've been cooking since I left the pharmacy." "Don't start, babe," he sighed, impatient, not regretful. "I'm doing this for us, for our future. You know how much this commission could bring. It pays for the entire honeymoon." As he spoke, he switched the phone to his other hand, and for a second that would change everything, the camera angle widened. He was at the airport, and behind him, over his left shoulder, something exploded before my eyes like an impossible warning sign. A neon pink suitcase. Not just any suitcase, a designer bag, limited edition, gold hardware. I knew every detail because I was the one who bought it, a month earlier, for my sister, Priscilla. She had thrown a fit saying she needed it to maintain her influencer aesthetic. I swallowed hard. "Raphael," my voice came out thinner than I wanted. "Is there someone with you?" "What? No, just the team. Love, they're calling boarding. I have to go. I love you." He lowered the phone but hit the wrong button. The call didn't end immediately. The camera pointed to the floor, capturing his hurried steps, and then I heard it. "Did she leave already?" The voice was sharp, mocking, horribly familiar. My mother.
"Yes," Raphael replied, no longer making any effort to sound tired. "God, she's so needy. It's exhausting." "You handled it perfectly, dear," my mother said, satisfied. "Now put that phone away. Priscilla is waiting at the gate with the drinks." A pause. A laugh. "Fernando de Noronha, here we come." The screen went black. I stood frozen in the middle of the spotless kitchen while the storm roared outside. My hand gripped the counter so tightly my knuckles turned white. Brasilia. No. They were going to Fernando de Noronha. My fiancé, my sister, my parents, my entire family. And I hadn't just been left behind, they had lied while looking me straight in the eyes. The smell of the filet mignon made me nauseous. I turned off the oven with trembling hands. I walked into the living room as if moving through wet concrete. That's when I saw the iPad. Raphael's old iPad, forgotten on the charging dock. The screen lit up with a notification. A message from Priscilla. I can't wait to announce the good news next week. She's going to freak out when she realizes the house is basically ours. Hurry up, baby's daddy. The world spun. My hands shook as I picked up the device. I typed the password without thinking. 12/18. My sister's birthday. And in that moment, I opened the gates of hell. Some truths don't arrive like a scream. They leak. They slip in slowly, like cold water around your ankles, and when you realize it, you're already submerged. I stared at that message for several seconds, maybe minutes. Time stopped existing the moment I read those words. Baby's daddy. My mind tried to deny it before it could even process it. No, this was wrong. There had to be another explanation. There always is, right? But my body already knew. My heart started pounding too fast, too hard, as if it were trying to escape my chest. My legs gave out and I sat down on the couch without remembering how I got there. The sound of the rain had softened, but inside me, something began to collapse with a deafening roar. I swiped my finger across the iPad, opening the full conversation, and then I saw everything. Photos, short videos, half-deleted messages, as if they knew someone one day might find them. Priscilla smiling on a balcony I would recognize anywhere, the same hotel where I had spent my honeymoon with Raphael years earlier, when I still believed happiness was permanent. She wore a tight white dress, one hand resting on her still discreet belly while he held her from behind. Raphael, my fiancé, the man I thought I would marry. I scrolled. Conversations with my mother. You need to be careful. Marina is starting to suspect something. Relax, Mom. She's always been slow to notice things. Good thing the house is in her name. Makes everything easier. The house. My house. The one I bought with the compensation money from my first husband's death. Money soaked in grief, which I turned into shelter, into a new beginning. The same house Raphael insisted on organizing better, with powers of attorney, contracts, papers I signed without reading carefully, because I trusted him. I closed my eyes tightly. My head started to throb, as if someone were hammering from the inside. I stood up and walked to the bathroom. I braced my hands on the sink and stared at my reflection in the mirror. The woman staring back at me looked 10 years older. Stupid, stupid, stupid. The tears finally came, hot and silent, falling without a sound. I didn't cry out loud. I didn't scream. My crying was internal, deep, like a freshly discovered grief. Because that's what it was. Grief. Not only for the man I was losing, but for the family I never truly had. I went back to the living room and kept scrolling through the iPad. The more I read, the clearer everything became. The business trips, the strategic absences, my mother's cold looks whenever I talked about the wedding, Priscilla's constant hints that I didn't deserve that much. Everything made sense now. There was even a group chat. The name, Final Plan. My stomach turned. There they all were. My mother, my father.
Priscilla. Raphael. Cold, calculated messages, almost administrative. After the wedding, we transfer the house. She trusts blindly. She's always been the good one in the family, easy to manipulate. My father wrote only once, but it was enough. Don't do anything until we secure everything. She can't suspect. A metallic taste filled my mouth. I stood up again, walking through the house like a stranger in my own home. Every object seemed to watch me. Every wall seemed to whisper, "You were deceived." I passed the dinner table. The candles were still lit. The wine was open. The meal I had prepared with so much care now sat forgotten in the oven. That was the moment something shifted. The pain was still there, but underneath it, something else began to form. Cold, silent, controlled.
I wasn't going to call. I wasn't going to confront them. Not that night. They thought I was slow, naive, predictable. I placed the iPad exactly where it had been, turned off the lights, went upstairs, and lay down without changing my clothes. I stared at the ceiling, counting my breaths, while the storm finally drifted away. But inside me, it was only beginning. Because that night, between dried tears and decisions no one could imagine, I understood something with terrifying clarity. They thought they were destroying me. They had no idea they were teaching me how to survive. I didn't sleep that night. I closed my eyes, yes, but sleep is something else entirely. The clock on the wall read 3 in the morning when I realized my crying had dried up. The pillow was damp, but my face, hard, empty. There were no tears left. That was when I understood. The pain had changed shape. I got up slowly, as if the house were full of people who shouldn't see me awake. I walked into the home office and turned on the desk lamp. The yellow light revealed stacks of documents arranged with excessive care, the care of someone who believed organization meant safety. I sat down and began opening folders: the property contract, bank statements, powers of attorney. My hands trembled less now. With every paper, every signature, every detail I recognized as mine, something inside my mind began to reorganize. It wasn't calm, it was focus. There was a power of attorney signed by me, dated 6 months earlier. It granted Raphael authorization for representation in administrative matters related to the property. Administrative. The word sounded harmless, but I knew that was where the trap lived. I opened my laptop and started researching. Laws, legal terms, clauses I had never bothered to understand before. The silence of the early morning made everything feel heavier, more final. Around 5 a.m., my phone vibrated. A message from my mother. "Good morning, my dear. Did you sleep well?" I smiled. A slow smile. Without joy, I replied with the same sweetness as always. "I did, Mom. Did you all arrive safely?" The response came almost instantly. "We did. Exhausting trip. We'll talk later." Fernando de Noronha. Confirmed. I closed the laptop. At that moment, I made a decision that changed the game. I wasn't going to run. I wasn't going to scream. I was going to observe. Over the next few days, I kept everything exactly as they expected. I kept going to work. I kept smiling at Sunday lunches. I kept listening to my sister talk about the future with that fake sparkle in her eyes. They believed they were in control, but now I was playing too. I started small, changed passwords, activated 2-factor authentication, scheduled meetings they knew nothing about. On Thursday, I sat across from a lawyer recommended by a colleague at the pharmacy. I didn't tell him everything, just enough to hear what I needed. He flipped through the documents calmly. "Marina," he said finally, adjusting his glasses, "they can't transfer this property without your direct authorization. The power of attorney doesn't cover that." My heart pounded, but my face stayed neutral. "And if they try?" "If they do, it's fraud." Fraud. The word echoed like a bell. I left with a new folder heavier than when I arrived, not because of the paper, but because of the knowledge. On Friday night, Raphael called. "Love, I miss you so much. That trip was chaos. Brasilia sucked the life out of me." "I can imagine," I replied softly. "It must have been exhausting." He laughed. "But it was worth it. When I get back, I'll make up to you." "Of course, I'll be waiting." I hung up before he could hear any hesitation. I went to the guest room, opened the closet, and pulled out an old suitcase. I placed inside it a few clothes, original documents, and the iPad. I hid everything in the trunk of my car, under the spare tire. It wasn't escape, it was precaution. That Sunday, during the family lunch, my mother held my hand with rehearsed affection. "You've been different, sweetheart." I tilted my head, feigning curiosity. "Different how?" "Quieter, more distant." I smiled. "I think I'm growing up." Priscilla laughed, mockingly. "Finally!" I swallowed the comment without reacting, because I knew something they didn't.
Time wasn't against me. It was working for me. And when it finally decided to fall, it wouldn't be on me. Lying requires effort, planning, repetition, and the bigger the lie becomes, the more people are needed to sustain it. I knew that now, and I also knew that no one can stay perfectly alert all the time. All I had to do was wait for the mistake. Raphael returned from his trip the following Wednesday. He arrived with expensive flowers, overpowering cologne, and a smile that felt too rehearsed. He kissed my cheek like someone fulfilling an obligation. "You have no idea what hell that week was," he said, dropping his suitcase in the middle of the living room. "I only thought about you." "I can imagine," I replied, taking the flowers. "It must have been exhausting." He exhaled in relief. Over the next few days, I started creating small instabilities. Nothing obvious, just enough to force reactions. "I've been thinking," I said during dinner one night, "maybe now isn't the right time to get married. We should organize our finances better first." Raphael nearly choked. "What do you mean?" he asked far too quickly. "Just a thought," I shrugged. "The house, for example. I'd like to understand exactly how everything is documented." I saw fear flash across his face for a fraction of a second. Small, almost invisible. "Of course," he said. "We'll look at that later." Later. Always later. On Sunday, my mother showed up without warning. She walked through the house as if she still owned it, running her fingers along the furniture, silently assessing everything. "This house is worth a fortune now. You made a great investment." I did, and I did it on my own. She smiled, but her eyes hardened. That night, while Raphael slept beside me, I took his phone. I already knew the password. They had never bothered to hide it. The group chat was still there, but now the messages carried urgency. She started asking questions. "We need to speed things up. The wedding has to happen soon." My heart raced, but my hand stayed steady. There was a transfer scheduled. Not the whole house, just half of it. The first move. I saved everything, screenshot by screenshot, proof by proof. The next morning, I called the lawyer. "They're going to try something," I said. "They've already started. Then now is the time to act, not later." At work, I was called into the director's office. An unexpected offer, a promotion, a departmental transfer, more autonomy. I accepted immediately. Because freedom, I realized, is also a form of power. That Friday, during a family dinner, Raphael announced, "We've decided to move the wedding up." Silence. My mother smiled. Priscilla tightened her grip on her glass. I brought my hand to my mouth, pretending to be surprised. "Really?" I asked. "That's wonderful." Inside, everything was ready. Because when someone believes they've won, that's when they let their guard down. And I was just getting started. The news of the wedding being moved up spread far too quickly. It was as if everyone had already been ready, just waiting for my permission to act. Dates appeared without me choosing them, decisions were made without my approval, opinions surfaced where they weren't invited. I watched it all with a discreet smile. Inside, every move confirmed what I already knew. There was urgency, and urgency is the enemy of perfection. My mother started calling every day, always with the same sweet tone, always with the same questions disguised as concern. "Are you okay, sweetheart? Aren't you overwhelmed? Do you want me to help with the arrangements?" I accepted the help. All of it. The closer they got, the more comfortable they became, and the more comfortable they felt, the more they talked. Priscilla showed up one rainy afternoon, wearing clothes far too loose for the heat. She sat on the couch, crossed her legs with visible effort. You know, marriage changes everything, especially when it involves assets. I looked at her with genuine interest. It really does. Sometimes it's better to simplify, put everything in the couple's name, avoid confusion later. I smiled. "I agree. Confusion ruins relationships." She exhaled, relieved. That night, I sent a message to the family group chat. "I've been thinking about organizing the house documents better before the wedding to avoid problems later." The responses came instantly. Hearts, approvals, thinly disguised excitement. Raphael hugged me from behind in the kitchen. "I'm so proud of you," he said. "Always so responsible."
I learned by watching, I replied. Meanwhile, beyond their reach, everything was moving. The lawyer had prepared formal notices, the bank had been alerted, the property registry was under legal monitoring. They had no idea. On Thursday, Raphael asked to see the original house documents. Just to double check, he said. Nothing serious. I handed him a folder, a fake one. I watched as he flipped through it, tense, searching for something that wasn't there. Everything looks fine, he lied. On Friday, I received the confirmation I had been waiting for. Attempted transaction blocked. They had taken the bait. The wedding was scheduled for 3 weeks later. A luxurious venue, an extensive guest list, people I barely knew, yet who seemed deeply invested in celebrating something that wasn't love. That night, I sat alone on the bed and took a deep breath. There was no turning back now, because I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was leading, and the stage was already set. The days leading up to the wedding passed too quickly for them, and far too slowly for me. I watched the preparations like someone observing a fire from a distance, knowing exactly when the flames would reach the point of no return. Evidence was organized, dates aligned, key people had been warned. They believed I was nervous about the ceremony. They had no idea I was calm. My mother insisted on handling every detail. She chose flowers I didn't like, a caterer I hadn't approved. Even the dress seemed more important to her than it was to me. "You trust me, don't you?" she asked, adjusting my veil during the final fitting. "I always have," I replied. And it was true. That was the problem. Raphael, meanwhile, had grown restless. He paced through the house, whispering into his phone, changing rooms whenever I entered. He slept poorly, drank more. Fear was beginning to surface, even if he didn't know why. On Tuesday, before the wedding, my lawyer called. They tried again, this time with more urgency. I closed my eyes. "And?" he said. "Everything is documented. They're digging themselves deeper." I thanked him and hung up. That night, during dinner, I brought it up casually. "I was thinking," I said calmly, "maybe we should sign that prenuptial agreement you mentioned." Raphael went pale. "I mentioned that?" "Yes," I smiled. "You said it would be better for both of us." A heavy silence followed. "Of course," he said finally. "We can look at that tomorrow." But I knew. They were running out of time. On the eve of the wedding, I organized everything I needed in a black folder. I handed another copy to my lawyer. I informed my company's management that I wouldn't be returning on Monday. "Honeymoon?" they joked. "Something like that," I replied. That night, my mother entered my room without knocking. "You seem strangely calm," she remarked. I looked at her through the mirror. Confidence brings peace. She smiled, but her fingers tightened around the rosary far too hard. Deep down, they all felt it. Something was wrong, but no one dared stop, because when ambition speaks louder, the instinct for survival goes silent. And the stage was ready. The day dawned far too bright for a story this dark. The venue was flawless. Crystal chandeliers glowing, white flowers everywhere, soft music floating through the air. Guests smiled, glasses clinked, and everyone whispered about how the wedding looked like a fairy tale. I watched it all from the bride's private room, dressed in white, calm, ready. My mother came in first. She adjusted my veil with steady hands, though her smile betrayed nervousness. "Everything is beautiful," she said. "You look radiant." "I know," I replied. Raphael followed shortly after. His expensive suit couldn't hide the sweat on his temples. He kissed my forehead in a hurry. "It's almost time," he whispered. "After this, everything will fall into place." "It will," I said. The ceremony began on time. I walked toward the altar, each step echoing inside me. It wasn't fear. It was anticipation. The officiant spoke of love, partnership, trust. Beautiful words, hollow in that setting. When it was time for the vows, Raphael went first. Rehearsed promises. Tears measured just right. The audience sighed. Then it was my turn. I took the microphone. I inhaled deeply. "Before I promise anything," I began, "there is a truth that needs to be told. A murmur rippled through the room. My mother shifted in her seat. Priscilla's face went rigid. I believed every word I was told for years. I trusted my family. I trusted the man I was going to marry. Raphael frowned. Marina, he whispered. I discovered that trust can be a weapon, I continued, my voice steady, when it's used against someone who loves without defenses. I gave a subtle signal. The large screen lit up. Messages, photos, conversations, absolute silence. Priscilla covered her mouth. My mother turned pale. Raphael stepped back. You planned everything, I said now firmly, to steal my home, my safety, my dignity. The officiant tried to intervene, but the lawyer I had invited stood up. This ceremony is suspended. There is clear evidence of attempted fraud. Chaos erupted. Guests whispered, chairs scraped, luxury dissolved into humiliation. Raphael tried to speak to me. I can explain. You don't need to. I understand everything now. I turned to my mother. You too. She was crying, or pretending. I removed the ring from my finger and placed it on the altar. This wedding ends here. I turned and walked out, beneath stunned stares. Each step felt light, because truth had finally walked in, and no one walked out untouched. I left the venue without looking back. The sun was high, warm, and indifferent to the chaos I had left behind. Outside, the air felt different, lighter, as if I were breathing for the first time in years. I got into the car that was already waiting for me and asked the driver to go. There was no destination, only an urgent need for distance. My phone vibrated endlessly. I didn't answer a single call. Hours later, back home, I sat on the empty couch. For the first time, that place truly felt like mine, not as property, but as a space for silence and rebuilding. The consequences didn't take long. Raphael tried to contact me through lawyers. It was useless. The evidence was too clear. The case followed its course. Cold, technical, exactly as it should. The attempted fraud became something that could no longer be ignored. My family fractured. There were those who tried to convince me to let it go, those who said I was exaggerating, those who preferred the comfort of denial over the dignity of truth. I chose something else. I chose distance. My mother wrote me a letter. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She justified herself, spoke of mistakes, confusion, love that had lost its way. I never replied. Priscilla vanished from my life like a shadow at dawn. I heard, through others, that the castle she imagined collapsed before it was ever finished. And me? I stayed. I rebuilt the house, changed the locks, painted the walls, donated furniture. Every change was symbolic, every gesture a ritual of closure. At work, I embraced my new position with confidence. For the first time, my decisions didn't need anyone's approval but my own. Some nights were still hard. Certain memories insisted on returning, but they no longer hurt the same way. Because now I knew the truth does not destroy those who face it, it frees them. Today, when someone asks if I regret trusting, I answer without hesitation. No, I would regret staying blind. Some stories don't end with romantic love. They end with something rarer: autonomy, awareness, peace. And that was my true happy ending.